What's up, Planeswalkers? It's your boy K-Dog. Got a little Selesnya list for you guys. This one here, Kogla's Paradise. So, of course, Kogla, the Titan Ape, has seen some play with things like Geruda mostly. But now that, of course, companions have been nerfed a little bit, it doesn't seem like Geruda is going to be seeing a whole lot of play anymore. But yeah, so I think Kogla is a really fun and fantastic card. Obviously, at 6 mana, it's a little bit steep, so it's probably a little bit priced out of maybe some competitive play. But you know, we're just trying to play some kind of fair, fun decks, and so I think Kogla is a really fantastic top end here in a Selesnya list, and we're very aggressive here, and so things like Kogla pair really well with Charming Prince, because the Charming Prince is a human, so you can return, use Kogla's ability to return a human to your hand to give it indestructible. And then, of course, when Kogla comes down, it fights up to one target creature you don't control. And also having the value of when it attacks to destroy an artifact or enchantment on your opponent's side is great as well. And then paying 2 mana to return a human, give it indestructible. Hasn't really been too relevant, but you know, if there is that option, if there is that line of play where it is, then definitely pairing with something like a Charming Prince is doesn't get any better than that. Because Charming Prince, of course, is a 2/2. When it enters, we can scry 2, we can gain 3 life, or we can exile another target creature you control and return to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So, of course, Charming Prince, you can just choose to exile another target creature, Kogla, and then Kogla gets exiled, comes back down on your end step, and then gets this enter the battlefield trigger all over again. And Charming Prince, of course, is fine to play on the early game as well. To scry 2, so you can kind of fix your draws and get yourself set up perfectly with you know, creatures, with land drops, whatever the case may be, or against any kind of a creature or aggressive base builds that maybe get a little bit of head start on you. Maybe they just happen to go first. You can just go for the gain 3 life. And so to kind of build around this strategy, we have 4 Healer's Hawks, or just trying to basically just be aggressive. We have nice early turn creatures as well, and then we have fantastic late game here with things like Kogla as well. So just a nice aggressive Selesnya list. So 4 Healer's Hawks, 4 Pelt Collectors, so 1/1 for 1 mana. But then anytime you play a creature with power more than Pelt Collector, it gets a +1 counter on it. And then once it has 3 or more +1 counters on it, it has Trample. So obviously Kogla at our top end has 7 power, and we have plenty of other 2, 3, 4, and 5 powered creatures as well. So there's definitely a pretty reasonable chance you can see your Pelt Collector become a 3/3, 4/4 pretty reasonably. And then 4 copies here. Paradise Druid, it's just a fine, you know, 2/1 hexproof for 2 mana. Makes it a pretty reasonable value on its own, but also being able to ramp you and fix your mana as well. So we are mostly green, but obviously there are a couple, you know, double white spells and things like that. And so if you get stuck on, you know, 1 white for some reason, then Paradise Druid can kind of fix that while ramping you at the same time. So just fantastic all-around card. Of course, works well with things like Pelt Collector as well. 2 copies here of Banishing Light. Need some kind of removal in your main deck, and Banishing Light is just nice, versatile. Conflict Tribunal, maybe, but Banishing Light kind of lets you be aggressive to just cast your removal spell, and then still have your creatures open to attacking, things like that. We also have 2 copies here of Unbreakable Formation to give your creatures indestructible until end of turn, and if you cast it at basically sorcery speed, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on all of your creatures, and they gain vigilance until end of turn. So this can work well for like removals, sweepers, but usually you're not going to have the 3 mana open in most of those situations. So where this really shines is, of course, against other creature-based matchups where you give all of your creatures indestructible and you vigilance and the +1/+1 counter. It just kind of breaks the tide in your favor in any kind of a stalemate type situation. Lovestruck Beast, of course, is a fantastic spell here because we can play the sorcery side for 1 mana to make a 1/1 human token, and then you can pay just 3 mana to get a 5/5 down, which is great. Of course, the downside is it can't attack unless you control a 1/1 creature. We do have the sorcery side 1/1 human creature token. We also have a Healer's Hawk as well, so we have some nice options there. We also have 2 copies here of Cubwarden, so we have a little bit of a mutation sub-theme, but just a couple cards here. We do have some more in our sideboard as well, but Cubwarden kind of lets us get some lifelink against other kind of creature-based strategies, aggressive-based strategies, and also kind of go wide by mutating and get 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. And our other mutation here is Gemrazer, 4/4 reach trample, and of course the reason why it's so great is we can mutate and do destroy an artifact or enchantment on our opponent's side. And course, you can't run a Selesnya creature-based list without some copies of Questing Beast. It's legendary, so we're just going to run the 2 of. It just does pretty much everything. And then finally here at the 5-drop slot, just love all 3 of these cards. So instead of trying to choose which one to focus on, I just said I'm just going to run one of each. So we have God-Eternal Oketra. It's a 5-mana 3/6 double strike. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token with vigilance. And of course, like all the other guides, when it dies or is even put into exile, we can choose to put it back into our library, 3rd from the top. So just fantastic recursion, inevitability. We're pretty much everything in here is creatures except for like 5. The 2 Banishing Lights, the 2 Unbreakable Formations, and the Vivien here. So we have so many creatures that we're going to be getting some 4/4 creature tokens with Vigilance off of Oketra pretty regularly, and just a fantastic against so many different strategies. 1 copy here of Vivien Monster's Advocate, 5-mana Planeswalker for 3 loyalty, within the top card of our library anytime. We can cast creature spells from the top of our library. Like I said, we have tons of creatures, so this is just a fantastic way for us to kind of a green creature-based experimental frenzy kind of a thing. So just kind of chaining together potentially multiple creatures, and then of course being able to +1 to just get 3/3 beast creature tokens down, and then we can choose to put Vigilance, Reach, or Trample. So just really tons of value off of that. And the -2 is when you cast your next creature spell this turn, you can search your library for a creature card with lesser converted mana cost and put that onto the battlefield. So that's pretty great value as well. Works with things like Trostani, Kogla, Oketra, and everything like that. We can do cast one of those and then get like a Questing Beast, Lovestruck Beast, Charming Prince. There's just so many great options for us, even at the lower end of the spectrum. So yeah, it just works really well with everything we're trying to do here. Same thing here with Trostani. She's a 5-mana 1/4, which doesn't really look great. However, other creatures you control get +1/+1. And when she enters the battlefield, we get 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens with lifelink. So of course, those 1/1s get the +1/+1 effect, so they're basically 2 2s with lifelink, and that's just fantastic value. Beginning of your setup, each player gains control of all creatures they own. So things like Agent of Treachery out of the picture, thankfully. This one doesn't really have a whole lot of relevance in the current meta. There are some things like Claim the Firstborn is probably the one that comes to mind the most, but those are typically seen in sacrifice builds, and so your opponent's just going to steal it and sacrifice it anyway, and so this part isn't going to be too relevant. But there may still be a couple cards, but like I said, they don't really see a whole lot of play. So, but just having a 1/4 that makes 2 1/1s and an Anthem effect for all of your creatures makes her worth playing all by itself. And of course, 3 copies here of Kogla. It is a 6-mana spell. It is legendary, so I don't think you want to run all 4 because it's not something you want in your opening hand. Like, it's nice to see it there and to know that you're going to have that option, but you're not playing it until maybe turn 5. So having it in your opening hand isn't really great. So 3 copies I think is the ideal amount. Going to the metabase here, we have the Castle Ardenvale, just kind of a nice extra value to get creature tokens down since we are very kind of aggressive. It helps us all either against kind of stalemates to help us kind of go wide, or against removal heavy decks where they cleared your board and you have mana open, you just keep making 1/1s that your opponent has to deal with as well. 7 plains, 1 Castle Garenbrig, 7 forest, 4 temple gardens, and so we're trying to be aggressive, so instead of a tap land like the Temple of Plenty, I believe it is, we're just going to run 4 Fabled Passage instead, so we have the upside of having an untapped land. Sideboard here, we have 2 Fighters ones to help us against any removal heavy matchups, giving our creatures indestructible. We do have a handful of humans. We also have mostly non-humans. So obviously things like Charming Prince are humans and a couple others, but most of our creatures are not humans. But even if you spend 1 mana just to protect 1 creature, that can often be worth it by itself. 2 copies here of Soulguide Lantern. You do need some kind of a graveyard removal. Obviously cycling is still a thing, and there's certainly other strategies that rely on graveyards as well. So at least having some form of that, and Soulguide Lantern's pretty much your best bet in most cases. So 2 copies of that. 2 copies here of Glass Casket to shut down creatures with mana cost 3 or less. There's certainly some powerful ones with activated abilities you don't want to deal with, and so Glass Casket lets you exile those and get those out of the way. Vivien is kind of an interesting one. I haven't really gotten too much opportunities to play it, but I think it's could be pretty fantastic in certain matchups. Being able to cast your creature spells as though they had flash, and +1 to give you one of your creatures vigilance and reach. until your next turn, and you can -2 to look at the top 3 cards of your library and exile 1 face down. The rest goes to the bottom of your library, and for as long as that card remains exiled, we can look at that card and we can cast it if it's a creature spell. So you can cast it. So even if they deal with a Vivien, you can still cast it. However, you can only cast it with Flash if the card itself has Flash, or if you still have your Vivien in play. So just something to keep in mind. Just because Vivien has Flash and has the -2 ability, it doesn't mean you can cast that creature at Flash speed. You still have to have your Vivien out to do that. So just something to keep in mind. 2 copies here of Luminous Broodmoth. We do have the Healer's Hawk, but that's the only creature we have in the main deck with flying. So this kind of gives us some board wipe protection if your opponent's running like Shadowed Skies and Kaya's Wrath and things like that. You can bring in a couple copies of Broodmoth, so you might lose your Broodmoth, but everything else will come back with a flying counter on it. So that's going to make things really difficult for your opponent to deal with. And you do need plenty of artifact and enchantment rules still, so 2 more copies here. We also have 2 copies of Shifting Ceratops. Against the matchups where it works really well, it works fantastic. And against other matchups, it's just pretty medium, so that's why we have it here in the sideboard. And finally here we have 1 copy of Tolsimir, Friend of Wolves. We can take maybe like a Kogla, which is 6 mana, and bring in a 5 mana Tolsimir, which is a 3/3 by itself, and makes a 3/3 that fights something and gains us 3 life. So it works really well against other creature-based decks. That we don't have to wait till turn 6 to get to a Kogla to fight something. You can have a Tolsimir come down on turn 5 and have kind of a similar effect as well, while getting you a little bit of life. So that's the deck, and let's jump into some best of 3. See how we do. All right, begins with Vaughn X. Hand seems pretty good. Cool Forest and Lovestruck Beast here on 1, and then we can Charming Prince on 2. Yeah, hand seems great. Mono green so far. Paradise Druid. Let's go ahead and attack first, so they're not going to block. Go ahead and pay that life. Don't think we need to gain life. I think we just want to scry here. Just kind of fix our draws. We do want to find 4 manas. Make sure we get this Questing Beast. Healer's Hawk is fine, but I don't think that's what we want to be drawn into at this point. I mean, we're probably just Charming Prince, Temple Garden next turn, and then Questing Beast the following turn. So Healer's Hawk is just going to be kind of sitting in our hand. Okay, green Parachute, Risen Reef. Okay, so some kind of a Simic ramp. So I guess we're going to be going for Banishing Light on the Risen Reef, because that's it's kind of representing a lot of value for them. And attack for 3. So next turn we can Lovestruck Beast, play Temple Garden tapped, or we can just go for Questing Beast. Questing Beast is probably just the better play. I have nothing to block it with, so let's just do that. And if they want to throw the Parachute in front of something, that's fine with me. But nope, they are just Ramp City over there. Don't want to lose their Paradise Druids. So they're up to 7 mana here. Row. That's a busted card if I ever saw one. So they get some life. They draw a card. Their graveyard is empty, so that's something at least. Yeah, let's just keep swinging on. I think we want a Lovestruck Beast, Charming Prince, and then we can Unbreakable Formation next turn and potentially win the game. Okay, so they block the 2, take 5. So it's a Lovestruck Beast. And let's go ahead and Charming Prince to Frilled Mystic. Aren't you something? Playing Simic Flash. So like a Tristani or an Oketra or a Vivien would probably be pretty ideal draws here, but most likely we just go for the Unbreakable Formation. Pelt Collector here on like turn 5 or 6, whatever, doesn't really do a whole lot for us. Now they have some blockers for our Questing Beast. Land would actually be fantastic because then we could mutate and Unbreakable Formation. Get rid of this Nyx Bloom Ancient. So they're tapped. Yeah, they're tapped out. So let's go ahead and those are humans. So we unfortunately have to mutate onto our Questing Beast. Will go over. So if we find a second Questing Beast, we can do something about that. Yeah, I think even with the token is fine because they are kind of incentivized to block our bigger creatures. Okay, so they're taking trample down to 1. So they have to have a counterspell for our Unbreakable Formations, otherwise I think we can seal this up next turn. We've seen one Field Mystic from them. So where there's smoke, there's fire, so they should at least running Field Mystic. Hydroid Crisis for X6. Okay, getting 3 life back to 4. We have 3 blockers now. That Paradise Druid, which can tap for mana. Right, we'll just fire both of these off and just try to maximize damage here. So they can block 3 things. They can block our 3 biggest ones, and we get in for 3. Do you want the Paradise Druid gone or the Leafkin? Leafkin taps for multiple, but yeah, our opponent is doing things. So Simic Ramp. Don't think we need to worry too much about enchantments. We picked off their Nyx Bloom Ancient with it, but it seems pretty medium to count on that. Probably Vivien might be good in this matchup. They're going to be trying to counter us and do some shenanigans like that, but maybe not. I think we'll do it just because. Anything else we need? Glass Casket doesn't really do anything against Paradise Druid, unfortunately, and Leafkin Druids don't really seem like great targets. So Unbreakable Formation putting work for us there, but is it worth keeping in? Is that something that we can count on getting value off of? Maybe Cubwarden can just come out. We can just forget the whole mutation strategy. That might be the better option here. I'm assuming it's Krasis, Nissa, Uro. Just kind of a basic Simic creature ramp based deck. Okay, so we have Lovestruck Beast token on 1 into Paradise Druid on 2. Hopefully draw more lands so we can actually get to Oketra and Vivien. At least not all in on Simic Flash. Okay, you're all actually brought in some counterspells here. Ether Gust. Do we just want to land here? Probably. I'd rather just draw a land, honestly, than try to redraw a Paradise Druid and play a Paradise Druid. If we draw a land, then we can just drop this Lovestruck Beast. At a minimum, we can make a another 1/1 token. But there goes their Risen Reef value. Charming Prince. Probably need to do that for the Scry so we can get some lands. Just looking for lands. Scry. Those are 2 lands, but I don't think we want 2 white sources. Having 1 more white source is fine, but we do need a second green source for Vivien, and eventually we'll need 3 for Kogla. But we can at least Banishing Light this Risen Reef so they don't get this value, although they've got Leafkin Druid right away, so might just be too late. I do still have 2 mana open. Ether Gust does not do anything to Banishing Light. Okay, flash an Omen of the Sea. Sure. Alright, so we desperately need a second green mana here. So we'll attack in for 3. They block, take 1. Second green source, we can make a 1-1 and play out our 5-5. Otherwise, we're just giving our opponent way too much time to get going. So I have 3 mana open here. Another Omen. Running into all these planes just might be our downfall. And obviously we have Oketra at some point, but giving a ramp deck time to do their thing is usually not a good recipe for success. We'll give it a couple more turns. If they drop like a Nissa or something, we'll probably just pack it in, because Nissa is just one of those busted cards that should not be legal. Everyone forgot about it because the power level was just that much worse, but I'm sure Nissa is starting to make a comeback post-bans a little bit. And of course, Uro is also another stupid card. Okay, just a Nyxbloom Ancient. So what are you actually ramping into with all this stuff? So unfortunately, we just have to make a 1-1 and a couple 1-1s here. We'll swing 5. If they want to trade their Nyxbloom, we'll take it. So they have all the mana in the world. Let's see if they have anything to do with it. I mean, so far we've seen just a bunch of ways to ramp, but no actual payoffs besides Hydroid Krasis. They get a Hydroid Krasis for 10. That's a thing. And they have all the mana open for Frilled Mystics and things like that. Alright, so just a silly little Simic ramp list. Yep. Hydroid Krasis is still busted. I guess we could bring in the Glass Caskets to deal with that. That could be a thing. What do we want to take out? I think Vivien probably isn't really so good here, so let's run it like that. If they just run a couple copies of Frilled Mystic, they might not even have left it in against us. So we'll just try this. Okay, so we have turn 1 Pelt Collector and turn 2 Paradise Druid. So we have the Kogla, which is interesting, but a lot of lands as well, which means we'll be able to get to a Kogla, which can fight a Nyxbloom Ancient. Alright, so we'll need to shock in here, get our Paradise Druid for 2. Well, I guess we don't have anything white in our hand, so I think probably just drop the Force, I guess. Alright, that way we draw our Pelt Collector and swing for 2. And we probably just Temple Garden next turn, depending on what we draw. Holding priority, so just Omen of the Sea, which you're supposed to flash in when your opponent goes to combat, because it's not relevant to the combat stuff, but you do it anyway. But they're a reasonable player. They wait till after combat, let us do our damage, and then they get their scry and draw action going on. So next turn we're up to 5 mana, so still 1 off of Kogla. Something like a Questing Beast would kind of be kind of an ideal draw. Okay, so they're running a Teamer Trio. And a lot of decks do that just for the cycling value, which seems like kind of a wasted slot. Even in a cycling deck, like you don't want to spend 3 mana to cycle. It just seems like, why? We could Unbreakable Formation just to get in for 6, but it doesn't seem like anything special. So I think we just hold on to it and use it to kind of close out the game, especially wait until they get some creatures out. It would be at 8 here. Next turn we can Kogla, thanks to Paradise Druid, grow our Pelt Collector, and fight whatever creature they play, even if it's a Nyx Bloom. If it's a Nissa, we can always fight Nissa land, but it's a Vivien instead, so we can take out their 3/3 token. The question is, do we take out, try to go at Vivien for 3? I think we just go after their life total. They're down to 8. So we put them down low. They get a 3/3 next turn, and they can potentially cast something off the top of their library. But we do have an Unbreakable Formation to help us punch through with our 3 creatures we already have on board. So I think just going aggro here is the way to go. So our opponent hasn't activated Vivien yet, so they're worried about their hand right now. Okay, +1, make a 3/3 with Vigilance. Yep.
I'd like you to meet my friend, Stumpy.
Glass Casket would be pretty nice as well. Take out that token, then we can get one less blocker to worry about. There's a Nissa, so they get a 3/3 as well. So they have 2 3/3s they can block with. We can put tokens, Vigilance, Indestructible on everything. They have to block. Alright, how do we want to do this? I think we need to attack first. As much as it'd be tempting to put the Charming Prince down, we don't get the Kogla attack value. So I think we need to do that. So we don't get a counter on our Charming Prince, but we do get a swing out at them, blow up the Omen of the Sun for what it's worth, which isn't much, but we get the... They lose both of their creatures, one of which is a land, so that's pretty fantastic for us. We don't lose anything. And actually, there's no real reason to exile the Kogla because there's nothing to fight, and it has a +1 counter on it. So I think we just scry and make sure we set up our next draw step. Pelt Collector is not enough here. And pass a turn. So we do have mana open to bounce our Charming Prince if we want to give Kogla Indestructible, but against a Simic, I don't think that's going to be relevant. So we have 4 creatures out. They're down to 1 life. So they're going to get 2 creatures here. And they'll need 2 more. So we do have this other Kogla in our back pocket. So if we need to get rid of something, we can, but then that kind of negates having a Kogla. Actually, we get to, let me think that through. So we get to choose, which means we can just choose the one that has Summoning Sickness, but we still get the fight effects. So yeah. So they get the Nyx Bloom Ancient. They're going to use Vivien's -2 to search for, what, a Risen Reef or something? Omnath. Okay, which deals 1 damage to any target. Cool. Yeah, that's how that works. So this is an elemental. Okay, so now they're effectively at 3 life, but they have 2 blockers. Wow, Dryad, that's pretty good. Three mana open still. Alright, so they've used both of their planeswalkers. So yeah, I think we just Kogla, and probably doesn't matter which one we fight. I guess the Nyx Bloom Ancient is the most dangerous. Say yes. Keep that. Enters the battlefield. Fights there. Oh, fights. Oh, I'm stupid. So we hit for 2. So we blow up the Great Henge. Oh man, I did not think that all the way through, did I? That's alright. So they're gonna block everything here, take 2, go down to 1. They're gonna lose, what, 2 of their creatures? I still have these Planeswalkers, which is good value. Okay, so Omnath and Nyxbloom Ancient are down. We use our Paradise Druid. Oh wait, the Pelt Collector had Trample. Wow. Alright. Well, obviously not something I play around with very much because I did not think all those things through. But yeah, we got a ton of counters on our Pelt Collector, which was nice to see. At least had the option to do Charming Prince, Kogla, do that combo, but against a Simic deck, that wasn't really great value. Yeah, we fought through 2 Planeswalkers and still got there Nissa, Krasis, and things like that. So yeah, thought that was a pretty decent showing of the deck. Obviously, I didn't pilot it in the best way possible, but yeah, we still got there 1, 2 out of 3. Can't really think of too many changes I would make to the deck. You can play around the sideboard a little bit, depending on the decks you tend to face off against, but feels pretty reasonable to me overall. And yeah, I think Selesnya is still just a fine color combination. Obviously, I've played with Abzan quite a bit, and that's kind of my preferred. But you know, when you go down 2 colors, you just get a lot more streamlined, a lot more simple with just the 2 colors. And so yeah, I think Selesnya is still a fantastic option that's often overlooked. So yeah, it's a fun deck overall. Definitely like seeing Kogla put in some work, which we saw there. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and until next time, make sure you jank with a purpose.